Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Good morning and welcome into Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Kennedy Robinson in the great town of Eastland, Texas, where the winter seems to never end as we are sitting here in March 2022. And since we're in that wintry fever, we might as well keep the mode really dull because we're going to talk about taxes. But I have good news. Before we get into it, I'm going to tell you we're going to talk about paying taxes on your terms. Interesting. We all file those little forms around this time of year or think about filing those little forms around this time of year and think, oh, is there anything I could do? How do I figure this out? This is so crazy, right? Well, yeah, it's kind of like speaking a foreign language. And that really is the truth. And on that note, I've been dying to tell this story. So I came across this. It just absolutely cracked me up. This was back when President Obama was in office, and the Japanese ambassador had come to Washington, D.C. to meet him, and he did not speak English. And so he had the translators with him, and they were trying to help him at least have some introductory words to have some conversation. And the instructor told him, he said, now when you shake the president's hand, you're going to say, nice to meet you, President Obama. How are you? And then Mr. Obama is going to say to you, I am fine. And you? And then you should reply, me too. And after that, we'll take it over from here. So, and by the way, this is Minister Maury. So Minister Maury, I'm sure you could look this up online. It literally had me rolling. So Minister Maury, he goes to Obama and he literally says, who are you? Instead of, how are you? Well, okay. So it gets better. So after that, President Obama actually is in shock and he says, well, I'm Michelle's husband. Ha ha. And Mr. Maury replied, me too. Ha ha. So I got a kick out of that one, but really it fits for today because taxes, they are literally the hardest thing. The American tax system, anyway, is the hardest thing in the world to understand. And even Albert Einstein was quoted saying the hardest thing to understand in the world is income tax. And I believe it. I mean, I still learn things every single day, it seems like, that are associated to income tax or income tax strategies or things you could do differently. And I don't think that there's a practitioner out there, a planner, someone that prepares that doesn't say the same thing. And so I've got some ideas today to share with you. I hope that you will walk away with kind of a refreshed sense on taxes, because I think people approach taxes like this. We go throughout the year, and we may or may not think about them too much, except for when we write those payments. And then we file our return, and at that moment, we look like we put our finger in a plug, and our hair is standing completely on end because we've got to figure out how to make that extra tax payment that we were surprised by. And then we're talking with our CPA, how do we get these taxes down? What do we do? How do we get these taxes down? And you may do a few little things that you can do, and then you forget about it, and you go, and the cycle repeats and repeats and repeats. And we do this year after year, 1 year at a time. And then for some of us, we go. Taxes aren't so bad. Taxes aren't so bad. Taxes aren't so bad. And we wake up and boom, 1 year, everything changes. And all of a sudden, taxes are really bad. And that happens when people sell businesses, sell real estate. Oh, that's one of the biggest shockers. Retire with big 401ks or IRAs. Those are some of the bigger shockers. Business owners. Oh my gosh, business owners. Wow, your whole life has been a write-off. I know it as because I've talked to a ton of business owners, and this is what they do. They find a reason to be able to write off almost everything they do. Well, then they retire. All of a sudden, they don't have anything to write off. All of a sudden, they got a chunk of money, and Uncle Sam is their new best friend. And this is how we go about taxes, right? So what do I mean by saying that? I mean by saying that we go about taxes 1 year at a time, never looking into the future and never thinking about how we could do things better for the long term. What about a lifetime of tax planning? Where would that get you? If you actually took out a projection of what your taxes would look like today, in the next few years, in the next few decades, and through the rest of your life, and then ask yourself, do you have an option to change that trajectory? And I would be willing to bet that 9 times out of 10, you do. Did you know that you can often choose when to pay tax? And by default, you can often choose how much you will pay. Now, I said often, I didn't say always, because sometimes you can't, but there are times that you can. And this isn't a trick. This isn't a I gotcha by any means. It's simply a result of understanding how taxes work and how they work in relationship to your unique situation. Are you the business owner? Are you the person with the large IRA or the 401k? Are you the person that is selling the real estate? Are you the person that's going to have a ranch to sell someday? Who are you? Have you thought about it? Because business owners, ranchers, you might not be paying any taxes today. Real estate owners, you might not be paying any tax today, and you are in for the surprise of your lifetime. You have no idea what's coming down the pike. Likewise, you've been shoving money back in that 401k, getting that tax deferral, feeling good. And likewise, boom, another bomb occurs. This is some really important stuff. And why don't we take a harder look at it? And you know what really shocks me is that your taxes could be one of your biggest expense, or they might be your biggest expense in retirement. I mean, obviously, healthcare could rank up there, but they could be your biggest expense in retirement. So why don't we pay more attention to that? Why do we go into our CPA and say, how do I get my taxes down now? When the real question should be is, how do I have a lifetime of the most effective tax strategy for my situation? When we come back on Life Planning 101, I'm going to give you an example that you are not going to want to miss. It's going to blow your mind of someone that is choosing when they pay tax and how much they are going to pay. You're not going to want to miss it right here on Life Planning 101 when we come back. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services here in Eastland, Texas. So excited to have you on the show today. We are talking about paying taxes on your terms. Little different thought, but it's going to be good stuff. But before I dive in, I want to remind you, make sure that you are going to our website and getting on there. I'm telling you, we have one of the most vast libraries of life planning information, wealth management information that anybody could get their hands on. And it's at www.kennedy-financial.com. We've literally been coining articles for well over a decade. We've been doing podcasts and radio shows for a similar period of time. And there is so much information, calculators, tools, things for resources for you to be able to use. It is truly invaluable. So I hope you're on there. I hope you're subscribed to our newsletter, which is fresh content every single week. And it's not canned content. It's not something that we purchase and just reproduce. It is our stuff. And you can do that again at www.kennedy-financial.com and sign up for our weekly life lessons. And of course, you're listening to the podcast, Life Planning 101, which we do every week. And we will have our CFA later this month, Aaron Kennedy and Matt Irvin. And they're going to be talking about what is going on in this world today with investments. And that's something that's not going to want to be missed either. But today, we are talking about paying taxes on your terms, knowing that you can choose when you pay tax and how much you will pay more often than not. So I'm going to give you an example. And this example reminds me of the Mr. People books. But we're going to talk about Mr. and Mrs. IRA. So Mr. and Mrs. IRA, they're 61 years old. Okay. And they're semi-retired and they've got a $2 million IRA. So 61, obviously successful, semi-retired, $2 million IRA. Now, if they're making 8% on that IRA, when they reach 72 years young, that IRA is going to be worth approximately $4.7 million. Pretty nice little retirement. Here's the kicker. Age 72. It's a magical age. It's an age when they're going to be required to withdraw funds from that IRA each and every year from that day on. And this is called a required minimum distribution. Now remember, IRAs are very tax friendly as you go into them. You got to write off the amount that you put in that IRA or defer it from your paycheck and paying taxes on it if it went in via like a retirement plan, right? They're just not so friendly when they come out because every single penny that you take out of an IRA is going to be subject to income tax. And it gets worse. See, it's not just subject to income tax, but when you have a sizable amount of money, well, really any amount of money hits your tax return, it could actually trigger a lot of other taxation to occur. So for Mr. and Mrs. IRA, it was what was called the quadruple whammy. Okay, their income taxes are going up because of the withdrawal. It triggered tax on their Social Security payments. Did you know your tax on your Social Security payments up to 85% under current law? Yeah, depending on your income levels, right? So their income level goes up. Now they're taxed on their Social Security up to 85%. Their long-term capital gains. We're going from no tax to now they're being taxed because they were under the threshold when they had a 0% tax rate on those long-term capital gains, and now they don't. And they lost some of their itemized deductions, like their medical expenses, which are subject to a percentage of your adjusted gross income on your tax return. And, drum roll please, we have a kicker. Yes, Medicare Part B and drug plan premiums also are going up for Mr. and Mrs. IRA to the tune of about $6,000 a year. Yeah, so your Medicare Part B is structured based on your income levels. And your drug plan, I can't even calculate that because there's so many different drug plans. So I'm not even using that in those numbers. But in this case, literally their situation, their pre-72 Medicare plan was about $4,000 a year under 2022 numbers. And post that, it's going to be about $10,600 a year. Ouch! And this is like projecting, right? This is just saying 2022 numbers. If you think medical expenses are going up, that could get way worse than that. So we talked about that and their income taxes. I just wanted you to make sure that you had time to sit down because if you didn't fall in your seat from the Medicare premium rise, I'm going to give you fair warning. Go ahead and sit down on this one. So their income taxes. We talked about that, right? So they're going to have to take that required minimum distribution, and that's on a required minimum distribution of $182,000 a year. And by the way, if you want all the specs behind this, it is in our weekly life lessons. This week is published online, www.kennedy-financial.com. You can see the workup on how these numbers happened. But their taxes, income taxes, they were, had a whopping $1,010 of income taxes they were paying before this ripe age of 72. And then just like that, overnight, everything changes. $49,704. That's what their tax bill is. So when you add up the taxes and the Medicare in 1 year, that's $55,000 plus that changed in 1 year for Mr. and Mrs. IRA. 1 year. So doing it as it comes, taking it as it comes, paying the tax as it comes, not doing any planning, whoo, that's a tough pill to swallow. Now, what I haven't told you is that Mr. and Mrs. IRA, they got a choice. Because if they do a little planning, well, we'll talk about that when the break comes over. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services. Be sure to tune in to the first part of this show. I'm going to tell you what, paying taxes on your terms, you choose when and how you want to pay. Ooh, that sounds like a lot of fun. May not be possible for everyone, but more than likely, there's some possibility that you do have a choice of when you pay and how much you pay, rather than just taking it in the teeth every single year, year after year, or getting to that place that, oh, yeah, we don't want to talk about those tax bombs anymore. Those are just too painful. Before the break, we talked about a couple that went from $1,000 a year, and then with their Medicare premiums and everything, they had a $55,000 change due to a required minimum distribution. And it happens. It happens more than not. I hate that. So what I told you before the break is that they had a choice. If they did a little planning, they had three options. Number one, they could pay some tax now at age 61 to pay less tax later. Number two choice was they could pay less tax than in option one and still pay less tax later. And number three is they could pay no additional tax now and even still pay less tax later. Not everyone is as lucky as Mr. and Mrs. IRA. Now, I will admit that, okay? Because they don't always have that number three option. They may not even have the number two option. They may only have the number one option. They may have none, but more than likely they have the number one option at minimal. But Mr. and Mrs. IRA, they've been diligent savers as well. So they had other assets outside of these IRA money that allowed them to choose number three, which allowed them to work towards a goal. And this specific goal is to keep their tax rate below 10% throughout all their retirement years. Now, obviously, we can't change what Congress does and how much it does, but we do have a pretty good idea that taxes might be going up. So if we could work on that goal, knowing that taxes are going up, I think that puts us ahead of the game, and that's exciting. And that's also what I call paying taxes on your turn. So now it's your turn. There's an old story of a Boilermaker, and he was hired to fix this huge steam liner boiler that wasn't working. And after listening to the engineer's description of the problems and asking a few questions, he went to the boiler room. He looked at the maze of twisting pipes and he listened to the thump of the boiler and the hiss and the escaping steam for a few minutes. And then he felt some of the pipes with his hands. Then he hummed a little to himself. He reached into his overalls and he took out a little bitty hammer, a small hammer, and tapped a bright red valve one time. Immediately, the engine started working perfectly, and he went home. When the steamship owner received a bill for $10,000, he became outraged. He was like, $10,000? He complained that Boilermaker was only there for just 15 minutes. How could that possibly be? And so he demanded an itemized bill like most people would. And so the Boilermaker sent him the bill. And it said this: for tapping the valve, 50 cents. For knowing where to tap, $9,999.50. Total, $10,000. At the end of the day, here's the deal. It's knowing where to tap. Yep, the hardest thing in the world to understand is income tax. Even a genius said that. Albert Einstein. How could you possibly expect to do the job alone and do it well? Especially when income tax could be one of the biggest threats to your entire future. It could be your biggest expense. It might be your biggest expense. So if that's the case, isn't that the threat that you need to work on probably the hardest, or at least make sure that everything is in order the way it should be? The old days of just taking it as it comes and paying it and complaining and going again, what can we do to lower our taxes? Which, by the way, is probably one of the most dangerous sentences that you could ask in all time is to say, what can I do to lower my taxes? Because the answers you're going to get are what can you do to lower your taxes today that actually might have effects in the long term. You need to know what those side effects are going to be. I mean, it needs to be like a commercial, like it is when you see a prescription drug. That is literally what happens with income taxes if you don't get it right. So now that you know this, now that you know that you have options, now that you know that you might be able to choose when you pay tax and how much you will pay, it's your turn. It's your turn. And guess what? We're sitting here. We're ready. This is what we do day in, day out. And I always tell people, oh man, is a tax return like a piece of candy for me. It is so much fun to help people figure out what they can do with their lifetime tax planning and how that can be a game changer. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services here in the town of Eastland, Texas. Big town, big heart. But I would tell you this, we are a life planning firm for a reason. We're a life planning firm because we truly believe in focusing on what it means to help people live life on purpose. And that's a little bit different for everyone. But what I will say is most of the time, Uncle Sam is not in that plan. So we do everything we can to help keep money in families' pockets, obviously with the help of a lot of other professionals. But make sure you're taking advantage of those professionals. Make sure that you're taking the time for yourself to get the help that you need so that you know where to tap. God bless you. Have a great week and join us next week on Life Planning 101.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax, bookkeeping, and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.